Друзья, я думаю, что мы будем потихонечку начинать.
Friends, I do think we'll be starting, and other speakers will join us later. So once again, thank you so much. I'm glad to see so many people interested in the topic. So we have a panel discussion which is called Pollution Factors, Practices to Reduce Environmental Risks. We have quite representative panel experts from different regions and countries of the world, and I see a lot of international associations and scientific community present here. So it means that climate change and pollution are among the top problems for the megacities, for the urban issues. These are these problems, and also the ability to keep track of the environment, the ability to improve the environment. These issues are the ones which we're going to discuss in the upcoming 60 minutes with the following experts. So let me introduce them to you. Experts who kindly joined me at that remarkable green podium. So let me move from my left. Irina Mai, Deputy Director for Science from Medical and Preventive Technologies. Most welcome. Marco Martuzzi, Head of the Environmental Impact Program from the European Bureau of WHO. Anne Giraud, Executive Director from the Paris Climate Agency. Esa Nikunin, Director of the Center of Environment from Helsinki. Boris Revich, from the Laboratory on Focus on the Quality of the Environment from the Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences. And last but not least, Said Al-Alabar, Chair of the Council from United Arab Emirates. And I see Anton Kolybachevsky, Head from the Department of Environmental Use and Environmental Protection of Moscow. Good afternoon, dear friends, and so let us proceed with the first presentation. So I invite Marco Martuzzi to tell us about whether environmental issues are so important for WHO, whether your organization really tackles with the pollution, what is being done in order to address those problems, what measures are being taken by the city administration, which of them are most efficient. Thank you so much. The floor is yours.
Thanks very much, and I'm delighted to open this discussion with a presentation. In WHO, we're very keen on our data. So I have slides, and I'd like to thank all the organizers for having us here in this beautiful event and this session. I come from the World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe. We are based, a small office on environment and health based in Bonn, in Germany. Now, the environment, how the environment affects health, we know quite a lot about it. These are many of the health determinants and risk factors that we have quite some evidence about. And if you notice that many of them have very strong links with the urban environment. Most of these factors, air pollution, climate change, have been mentioned already, but many others are determined to a good extent by the urban environment and the urban policies. So the urban environment has been receiving a lot of attention, growing attention in the environment and health domain in the last several years. If you consider the global picture, environmental factors are responsible for almost a fourth of the burden of disease, mortality and morbidity. And this is the global picture. In Europe, we are doing a bit better than the global average. Maybe 14–15% of the burden of disease is due to environmental factors, and approximately half of that is due to air pollution. Air pollution is by far the number one killer also among environmental risks. And air pollution accounts for 5 million years of life lost every year in Europe. When I say Europe, by the way, our office covers the extended version of Europe, made of 53 member states down to Central Asia, the Balkans, Turkey, Israel. So it's a large version of the continent. In Europe, we are lucky because compared to other regions, we have an ongoing process where ministries of health, ministries of environment, and many other stakeholders and actors get together, participate in a process since the late 1980s, where the priorities and the action are discussed and agreed upon. The last landmark event of this process was the 2017 ministerial conference held in Ostrava, Czech Republic. And these are the priorities that were identified and agreed by the member states, these governments. And you see the list here. And for the first time in this series, this was the sixth ministerial conference, action at city and regional level, the subnational level of action, was explicitly mentioned as a priority, recognized the importance of the action at local level. The other priorities include the classics: air pollution, water and sanitation, chemicals, and so on, and other topics that you see on the screen. Now, these slides, I think this slide has been shown before in the meeting. I don't need to tell you that the number of people living in cities in Europe and worldwide has been increasing, will increase further, and maybe compared to other continents, Europe has a little less of that, but still the vast majority of people are going to be living in cities now or in the future. And that's also there on the slide, a publication that we made in WHO Europe in preparation of the Ostrava Declaration conference, and all of that is available on our website. Now, this is an example of the kind of things that we consider in environment and health in Europe. It's an example of application where people looked at, a group of researchers looked at air pollution in cities, and you see that the very variable level of pollution, which translates into the shortening of life expectancy in 25 European cities, which really goes hand in hand with the level of pollution. You see rather substantial shortening of life with up to 22 months lost in life expectancy. This is another example from Turin, Italy, where it's also good to see that cities hold a lot of very valuable data. This is an example of comparing the level of predicted heat in case of heat waves and the provision of public health services, the vicinity to facilities, and the age distribution of the population, so the elderly, where the elderly concentrate and where the impact is likely to be more severe, the impact of heat. I have a very short time, but we've been working a lot also on positive factors, and I want to mention briefly the urban space, the green space, in urban green space. Parks and green areas in cities are very beneficial. The evidence is now strong enough to say that they're good for health, and a good and accessible green space are good for people's health, and we've been working on the evidence, on the action, and on a policy brief that where we try to be specific about what city governments or regional governments can do. These are examples through which health is beneficially affected by green space. A lot of different mechanisms. Some are very well established, others maybe less clear, but the overall picture certainly is very convincing of the effect. Let me skip one slide here and conclude by saying that there is a great potential for gains on health, looking at the environmental conditions in cities and regions at the local level. a lot of that is well known, but there's much more to be gained when it comes to prevention of impacts and promotion of good health. Transport, housing, green and blue space, climate change, and more. These are all dimensions that will greatly benefit health, and there's more to be gained. The momentum on the urban environment has been growing. I showed the example of the ministerial conference. There are multiple platforms and networks, the Healthy Cities Network, the Regions for Health Network, and I want to mention the fact that WHO has been collaborating with a number of cities and regions, including the city of Moscow. We've been exchanging experiences and good practices on air pollution, on climate change, and we will certainly have more to do in the coming months and years. And for the time being, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Спасибо большое, Марко Мартуцци.
Thank you very much, Marco Martuzzi. Yes, it was a very interesting presentation, which showed us quite a big picture, what is going on in different countries. And now, out of this big picture, we'll go to some separate regions. And let's start from Moscow City, where we are situated now. And I would like to invite Anton Kurbachevsky, who is the head of Department of Protection of Environment in Moscow City. And I would like to ask the following question. What about the problems of environment in Moscow exist now? What about the problems in environment in Moscow? And what are the main ecological climatic risks for the city? What are the main measures to prevent with this? I am thankful to all guests, to all panelists who came here this year. This forum is dedicated to health issues. Within 5 minutes, I will speak about main achievements in Moscow. 2010, we had a decline of pollution in Moscow. So we have 14 state programs dedicated to this. 7 programs are dedicated to protection of environment. And the realization already gave us positive results. I think the colleagues from other cities also will take note of it. If we speak about CO2 emissions, 2010, we had a lot of emissions, about 1 million tons of harmful agents per year. And 2018, 5 million cars we have, and emissions 780,000 tons. So 220,000 tons went away from pollution from the air. So 2,200 harmful agents went away. And this is thankful to the programs which we have. And we understand that this is not enough. We'll continue our work further. We developed ecological program for the city till 2030. A number of emissions from cars should be declined by 30% from the level of 2015. These are ambitious tasks, and we know how to solve them because all events, all activities are planned, are scheduled in accordance with this program. If there are changes in technology, we'll catch up with these changes. And with the level of the technologies which we have even now, until 2030, we'll have a good reserve, and we follow this program. So speaking about transport, so I already spoke about transport, and the main thing here, we changed paradigm. We did not construct new junctions, new square meters of road, of highway. We apply smart technologies, innovative technologies. We develop public transport. 68% of Muscovites use more public transport and not personal cars, and this is very good for us. Of course, we'll try to increase this trend. Since 2010, we constructed 820 kilometers of roads, a lot of bridges, and the speed increased by 18%, and also, we renewed the fleet of city buses. We already bought 300 electro buses, and this year we'll buy 300 more. And so soon we'll refuse from buses with the combustible engine. We'll have only these electro buses, and in the future it will give us also a positive effect. And with this will decline the volume of harmful agents. Moscow has a population more than 10 million people. Our energy system is global, and so practically we have a lot of energy. We produce a lot of energy in winter for our citizens to feel comfortable in winter. And here also we have a lot of success. We applied new technologies, innovative solutions, and we saved a lot of natural gas, about 2 billion. And also we declined, the emissions of gas by 15%, and also we have 550 million of square meters of real estate, but we did not increase energy production. So we have a lot of innovative solutions on energy saving, and these technologies are very efficient. And we can improve the system any further. Also, Moscow is the first subject of the Russian Federation which implemented the system of control over industrial emissions. 57 industries which now are also reconstructed. For example, oil processing plant, 250 million of rubles they invest in their reconstruction, and also we have a lot of reconstruction in cleaning structures and cleaning factories, and also we control practically all pipes, all enterprises, all emissions in the atmosphere in real time, and this gives us confidence. We stimulate business, and business understands that only high-tech, eco-friendly industries will stay. Only clean industries, only clean factories can work in Moscow agglomeration, and this information is open. Every citizen can easily find this information about the factories and about industries. And also in Moscow we have a restriction over noise work. We at night time, so there can be an increase in noise. For example, now also developers are quite well disciplined, less noise. Speaking about land and soil, of course we clean this as well. We have also the trend which is quite positive here about water and land. And it's not fully stabilized, but still we have potential here to improve our land and soil. Climatic factors. Moscow is also subject to climate changes as all other corners of the world, and we understand that these are our challenges of our modern world, because of course these changes have a big influence on health of Muscovites. Here also we develop guideline documents. We have a plan of actions in heat, in cold, if we have hurricanes, winds and so on. So we know the risks and we try to minimize them. And we believe that the main challenge for our city is sudden heat waves because, for our northern city, cold is not so dangerous as hot weather and heat. Moscow always declines effect on climate, 18%. As I've said, we have green gases and we already declined them, and still we have some reserve. I think that we'll have federal regulations, 25% from the level of 1990. I think 1-2 years, and we'll reach these parameters. Also, we have good system of information. We are open. There are different information resources, and many people. Moscow has a lot of information. There is a lot of news, sometimes contradictory. But I think that this information which we give is not only a good one, but it also calms down people. And the last thing, but which is very important, 50% of territories of old Moscow is covered by green trees. And we want to reach increase this by 60%. But someone can ask us, where can we take when we get this reserve? But first, I think industrial zones, old industrial zones, here we reorganize them. Minimum 15% of these old industrial zones should be covered by parks, different green trees, bushes, and so on. So this is shortly about us. Now I think we are going in the right direction. We have good positive trends. I hope next Urban Forum will even have more success. Thank you very much, Anton Kulbachevsky, for this detailed picture what is going on in Moscow City, but we're still in Russia for some time. I would like to give the floor to Boris Revich, the head of the lab of forecast of environment quality and health of population institute of forecast Russian Academy of Science. He will speak about risks for Russian cities in connection with negative consequences of climate change and how can we improve health of people. So please, we are trying to find the clicker right now, and okay, that is it. Thank you very much. So in the first presentation, it was spoken about a variety of different risks which our people can have, but I think usually cities don't have enough time and money to eliminate all risks. We can only minimize them and optimize them. And from the point of view of healthcare system and economy, we should understand what risks we can cope with, and each city should solve this differently, of course, and solves it differently. In the previous presentations, it was said about PM, which is the main indicator of air quality, and here you can see one map of WHO. Where Russia is not covered by anything because monitoring is weak here, and these agents already are considered to be cancerogens. In the previous session, there was a very interesting presentation of the professor from Germany. He spoke about new data, how PM influences on psychological state of people. And this is another map. And here you can see the whole Russian Federation. It is covered the same way as India and China. And in India and China, the level of population is extremely high, but we can't compare this level of pollution of India and China with the Russian cities. I think this is not just correct data. And since this year, we have much better monitoring of the situation because we launched the national project on 12 cities. We'll have additional equipment here, and we'll evaluate the situation in more details in this or that city. But now, mostly we speak about mortality rate. Mortality rate is on the top of this pyramid, but lower you can see a huge palette. These pyramids now in different cities are different, so pyramids sometimes refer to particular diseases or particular agents. For example, VPA built such a pyramid dedicated to carbon emissions. What is happening in Moscow? Many years ago, when I started to study this issue, I had 3 main books, a list of more than 3,000 industries, factories, which should be eliminated from Moscow. Mr. Kulbachevsky said that now we don't have a lot of such dirty factories, and we have a good shift on air quality because of this factory elimination. Regarding climate, here also we received information about the threshold of heat, which could be dangerous for Muscovites. It's all in Russian language and in English. And this is our work on very sad heat of 2010. And this heat could be compared with Paris hot weather of 2003. And together with the Department of Nature Protection, we worked at the plan for Paris, which existed for Paris. Here we have a lot of activities, and we really fulfilled all these activities. We worked not only in Moscow, but also in South cities, in Arctic cities, because my colleagues are busy with the cities a lot. And in my opinion, this urban health became much better managed than maybe 5 or 10 years ago, because now we understand the factors better, the factors which influence on health, some unfavorable factors of the environment, and we hope to achieve our positive consequences like this. So thank you very much, Boris Revich. You mentioned in your presentation also Paris heat of 2003, and we know that during last weeks, Paris and some other cities of France also suffer from extreme hot weather, and we are happy that today we have Anne Giraud, Executive Director of Paris Climatic Agency, and he will speak about Paris authorities, what they do to solve this situation, and what Paris Climate Agency is doing, why it was created, and why Paris needs the whole agency to solve this issue of climate. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present what we are doing is in Paris, which is a village compared to Great Moscow, because we have only 2.2 million inhabitants, and it's one of the densest cities in Europe. So it means that when we have heat waves, the problem is quite important in Paris. So I will explain what we are, Paris Climate Agency. It's a very original organization that has been launched on behalf of the city of Paris in 2010 in order to implement the strategy of Paris on climate and air pollution. So it means that we are not doing the policy, but we are trying to implement this policy in two main axes. First of all, how we can support change behavior for the citizens, how we can better explain to them the reality of climate change, the need for energy transition. And we are also acting with companies, private sector, in order to help them to act on priority sectors. And I must say that in Paris, one of our priority sectors is building renovation, because we don't have any more industries inside Paris. So we are also acting as having a lot of demonstration projects, because if we think that Paris climate strategy is willing to reach carbon neutrality by the year 2050, we must admit that we are very far from the objective, and so we have also to experiment a lot of innovation if we want to reach this objective. So we have been created by the City of Paris, but we also are financed by state through what we call in France ADEME, which is a French agency for energy conservation. And we have 1/3 of our budget coming from public and private companies, energy companies like EDF or ENGIE, architects, design bureaus. So we are like an alliance, a practical, pragmatic alliance to struggle against climate change. So in Paris, what are we talking about? It's true that last week was just terrible. We had at least 40 degrees during the day, and we were really suffering from a heat wave. But we also, I want to tell you that this heat wave is coming after the last 5 years. We have heat waves every summer, and we have heat wave starting from June up to September, which is quite. No, it's okay. It's just we have heat waves starting from June to September. So what we are, and we think, I'm sorry, it's a bit difficult, and we think that the average temperature in Paris will be, in average, 2 to 4 degrees more in this century, and we will have heat wave for maybe 25 days per summer. We will have heat waves. So there is three different things, axes that we are working, and maybe I will, if I have more time later, will be pleased to give more details. First of all, we have to answer to urgency last week, where the people can go if they want to be refreshed at night or during the day, in order to not to start again what we have seen in 2003, where we have in France 13,000 people died from heat waves. So first of all, taking into account the problem of the people and helping them to save their life or to be refreshed during the day. The other thing is how we can adapt the city. So this means that we have to work with urban planner, architects. Urban planner and architects, they know very well how to build for winters, but they don't know how to build with climate change. They don't know how to build with this heat wave. So this is a revolution for training and for regulation. I can give you some ideas. And the third point, we are trying to experiment new techniques. For example, how we can remove asphalt in Paris, and what will be the consequences in schoolyards, for example. So the people and the pupils could have a fresh area. We're creating a fresh island in Paris. And this is, I know it's already stopped, and we have, this is what we are doing, and I will be happy to answer to a few questions afterwards.
Спасибо большое, Анжеро.
Thank you, Angelo. Really a very interesting experience of how Paris Climate Agency and the Paris government react to the climate change, and spoke a lot about the importance of the renovation and reconstruction of the buildings and the urban design in order to reduce the footprint and to be prepared for the heat waves and other negative climate phenomena. And I would like to pass the floor to our guest from the United Arab Emirates, Saud Al-Alabar, who is the chair of the Council on Environmental Building, and he will tell us what role construction plays in all these things, especially when we speak about green construction. Please tell us who should regulate green building. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here in this beautiful city. I'll talk in my capacity, which I sit on the board of directors of the World Green Building Council, so in terms of globally what we're looking at with buildings. I think our other panelists elaborated brilliantly about the current crisis we're facing. You know, globally we're facing a climate crisis and we're facing a health crisis in our cities. And really it's the cities which are the front line that are going to solve this crisis, and they're the ones that are going to be feeling the impacts of this crisis. I think our colleague from the World Health Organization talked about city level action, and I think we're seeing more and more of this, that action is happening more at the city level than at the federal level, more so now. Talking a little bit about the crises that we're facing. Around the health, I think in the program notes it talks about the invisible health issues, but you know, these are really very visible, tangible issues at the moment. I was recently in India where I'm doing some work around smart cities, and in New Delhi they recorded an air quality index of almost 1,000, which, to put into context, is the same of smoking 40 to 50 cigarettes a day. So if you translate that into a health crisis, it's very real. To solve this, we really need to have an integrated approach. You know, the city planning, transportation, the health sector, environmental regulation really all has to come together. But the part I want to talk about briefly is really the role around buildings, because that's the area that I work in, that I'm very passionate about. So why buildings? We talk about climate. 39% of global emissions is a result of the energy consumption in buildings. So it's the highest emitter of all sectors, more than transport, more than industry. So it's really the front line of the issue we need to tackle. But secondly, it also offers the best economic opportunity to tackle it as well. It's a lot easier to tackle the building question than it is some of the other areas that we're looking at. I'm very pleased that we have a representative here from Paris. Obviously, the Paris Climate Agreement, where we pledged for this 1.5 degrees Celsius, was a turning point, and I was fortunate to attend that summit. And again, the really notable thing I noted from that summit, which I hadn't noticed at previous summits, was the role of cities. City mayors were held at the same level as presidents and heads of state, and it's no surprise that we actually got something done, because the cities have to get something done. But really coming out of that as a global green building movement, we looked at that and says, right, what do we need to do to achieve this 1.5 degrees? What needs to happen to decarbonize the global economy by 2050? So we set about creating a call to action. This was around 2016, 2017, and we said that the call to action is for achieving net zero carbon buildings for all your new buildings by 2030, and decarbonizing all your existing buildings by 2050. So initially we put out this call to action. We spoke to lots of business, we spoke to lots of government, and we only had 3 businesses that signed up initially and said, yeah, we will, big portfolio owners saying, we will sign up to this. But then something really sort of amazing happened. From that business taking the lead, cities then very quickly followed, and we launched this at the Climate Action Summit recently, less than 2 years ago. We actually had 29 cities join that commitment, Paris being one of them, I think Helsinki as well, New York, Tokyo, Sydney, Stockholm, all signed up and said, yep, 2030 all of our new build will be net zero carbon, 2050 we're going to retrofit it. And even just last week, New York said that by 2050 they all of their skyscrapers have to achieve an 80% reduction in energy from where they are today. So where I'm just to summarize, we can't solve the climate crisis and we can't solve the health crisis without solving the building challenge. And I think the most important thing is it's feasible technologically, feasible economically. The most important thing is having the commitment. And I'm very pleased that those cities have committed, because with human ingenuity, with the engineering excellence and commitment of cities, I'm very confident we can get there. So thank you very much.
Спасибо большое за такую страстную.
Thank you so much for being so passionate, and I'm sure It will invest a lot of optimism into all our everyday life. So let's get to North Europe, Helsinki. Helsinki, for many of us, including residents of St. Petersburg, I'm from St. Petersburg myself, actually is regarded as a green city, where you frequently come to breathe some fresh air, to actually walk along the bay, but still there are some environmental problems. My question goes to Esa Nikkanen. What are environmental problems are there? What are the main climate risks there for the city of Helsinki? What the city administration does to address these challenges? And you are one of the northern capitals of Europe, so what do you do about that?
Okay, thank you for this introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me here to Moscow to tell you about what Helsinki is doing with climate and other environmental issues. We consider environmental questions very important in Helsinki. We would like to be the most functional city of the world. That's our strategic aim, and therefore also we should solve our environmental problems as well as possible. I take some examples of the work that we are doing. There's much more work as well. I start from noise. There are, of course, different places in the city. Some of them are noisy, some of them are silent. And we have made a lot of studies on that. Check the other one. Yeah, about 40% of the people in Helsinki live in noisy areas, and traffic is the #1 reason for that noise. And therefore, we think that an extensive range of noise abatement means is required. And we have a very detailed program for doing that. We, for example, want that the noise inside the people's homes should not exceed 35 decibels. And also we want to preserve quiet areas in the city. We find them very important for many reasons. We try to increase walking and biking in the city, and we have a very good public transport system in the city. If you take the public transport and biking and walking together, it's about 80% of all the trips, so just 20% for private cars. We try to promote electrical vehicles, for example. We are using, in some places, anti-noise coatings on the road, etc. And what is positive in these measures is that it's not just a question of noise, but they are good for air quality as well, and climate reason, and also traffic safety is improved if we do these things in the city. Air quality in Helsinki is relatively good, and it has improved during the past few years. But there are 3 main problems there still. Not severe, but anyway, there are problems. Traffic emissions from nitrogen oxide, sometimes in some street canyons, they exceed EU limit values. And of course, we would like to get rid of that. And then we have street dust, especially during springs, and also some small-scale wood burning in single-family housing areas. People in Finland, all of them have saunas, and when they are heating saunas with wood, it causes some local air quality problems. We have an air quality action plan that is very detailed. We have actions concerning traffic, street dust, and domestic wood burning, and this plan includes 45 measures. We are monitoring our air quality in quite intensive way. We have 3 levels of stations. The best one is very high quality. It's together with universities. And then we have some, let's say, also relatively high quality stations, about 10 of them. And then we have hundreds of smaller stations. As the time is running, I go to main climate risks in Helsinki. We made a study last year on this subject. Of course, you all know the sea and urban flooding, storm impacts, etc., and loss of biodiversity. One thing that was, at least for me, was new in this study was the tick-borne diseases, that the number of these diseases, as the number of ticks is increasing because of the weather is warming, the number of these diseases is also increasing in Helsinki and other parts of Finland. What are then our climate targets? We take this also very seriously. We want to be carbon neutral by 2035, and we have made a very detailed program how we can reach this target. And quite recently, just 2 months ago, the government of Finland also decided that Finland should be carbon neutral by 2035, the same target as Helsinki had for a couple of years already. But of course, we are happy that whole Finland is now following our example. Last thing is the Baltic Sea, which is surround Helsinki. It's very important for Helsinki city, and there also we have made a very detailed program how we can protect the sea. And as we can't not do everything ourselves, we have a Baltic Sea Challenge in which we have now 270 partners all around the Baltic Sea, also many partners from Russia, and we are very pleased for that. And by that, I thank you for your attention. Спасибо большое.
Спасибо большое, особенно...
Thank you so much. Especially, it was great to see that you are actively cooperating on the Baltic Sea Challenge with Russia and many Russian organizations. How do you think that actually such sessions and such events are important in terms of promoting cooperation between us? Our next speaker is Irina May from Deputy Director for Science of the Federal Scientific Center for Medical and Preventive Technologies. Can you tell us about some data, some statistics? People from the regions of the world, people from the cities of the world spoke a lot about what situation we have in different regions in terms of the air pollution, what city administrations do about that. My question to you is where we get this data, this information, how air pollution affects health, and so what the Russian science did about that. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone who is attending this session. I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to speak in front of you. I'd like to say that the monitoring of the public health, as well as the monitoring of the quality of the environment and quality of the diseases driven by air pollution, this is of a state-owned function. This lies in the public domain. So the speaker obviously invites guests to attend urban health sessions. Okay, so this is the public function to monitor the air quality and the diseases driven by air pollution. And this function has been performed. Probably you do not remember, but until 1980s, until 1990s, the environmental data was classified, and until 1992, actually the data about the public health was also classified. Now this data is open. Let me make reference to certain websites where you may see open source data in terms of the prevalence, morbidity, mortality, natural resources, depletion, etc. So there's some work to be done there. Certainly we'd like to have more information online, but what has already been done at the moment, this is a lot compared to what we used to have a couple of decades ago. Besides, I would like to remind you that Article 45 of the federal law on the sanitation and hygiene well-being, hygiene monitoring has been introduced. The main objective of this monitoring is to establish cause and effect relations between the environment and public health. Also, Following that decree, we have to improve the overall environmental situation. We have accumulated ample data, which may help us to make very profound and very interesting research into establishing those cause and effect ties. Nothing is perfect, and now we are improving the social hygiene monitoring. We also have a number of federal projects mentioned by Boris Revich. Actually, we are developing the concept on setting up a website which will showcase the data on the air quality and which will raise the public awareness about the air quality. Also, we have an interactive map on the quality of the potable water.
I think these resources will be available to people in the nearest future within the framework of the realization of this federal project. Now you can see here the links environment and health at the federal level, and this is one of the tasks which we fulfill annually, and we represent these results as the reports to the government, and this is also in open domain, and so these problems are quite variable. For example, Krasnoyarsk region and Kaliningrad region, Volgograd region, on Norilsk. Here we can have great difficulties between these regions, and priorities are the same here. This dust, heavy metals, noise, microbes, microbe contamination, and of course this all lead to a lot of diseases. But also I would like to say that having this variety of factors influencing on us, climate changes, and here we need also to prove that there is connection between health and environment at different levels. And for today, our scientists, worked at a lot of tools, so we can have different measurements. We can figure out the zones of inappropriate risks, and we can have a number of population in the risk zones. You can see here Chita and Perm cities, the maps, and also we have been conducting the same work in St. Petersburg and Moscow, Krasnoyarsk. We can see here the zones, the areas of high risks. And here scientists also can have a lot of research, and they can also indicate that the answers are quite adequate. We can have a lot of proofs here. Why do we do this? Managerial solutions, especially financial solutions, need to be proved. We should know that finances, investments have target, right target, and the tasks of city planning is on detection of areas of high risks and also maybe more favorable conditions. On the bottom we can see how transport system can change and how it can lead to changes of risks, the level of risks for health. Also, municipalities' programs of medical help and business community also should help us in solving these issues, because when we have serious, proofs, these proofs can be also the basics for joint ventures between business and scientific communication. I don't have a lot of time anymore, but thank you very much. I always monitor timing. Thank you very much, Irina. I think that's a very important presentation, and it shows why we discuss all this and how air pollution is connected with health risks of the population. Now, my friends, we should come back to our poll, and I spoke about this at the beginning of our session. Let's look at the screen. We have questions here. So if you downloaded our application, Open Forum, please enter this application. You find the whole urban health and press the button poll, and then you can choose any answer to these questions. While you are doing this, I would like to offer Anton Kulbachevsky to say a few words about what he thinks about this problem, and maybe he heard some presentation. What is the most important? How he thinks? What can be used for Moscow? Okay, I will start with this, that our problems of different metropolises and different countries are common, and then of course we need to do monitoring. Now we face national projects, and we now evaluate efficiency of this national project. Besides Moscow, St. Petersburg and some other cities of the Russian Federation, this notion of monitoring does not exist practically. And in Moscow, of course, maybe we are ahead, than other cities of Russia, like 15 years ahead. But still, we need to also go to regions and expand the monitoring system. Also, in the future, we should have the solutions for regions as well, because. Also, here we need to evaluate efficiency of investments and events, and ecological monitoring here is very important. Then, ecologists, medical specialists of Rospotrebnadzor, these are our colleagues. And we speak about this. We have been speaking for this for many years, and all our events are financed from health care system, and the government of Moscow looks at it differently. Till 2010, everybody was afraid of medical statistics, and nobody wanted to see this connection between environment and health. But now we cope with this. Also, we cooperate with the WHO, and we participate in the project Regions, Healthy Regions. We support all principles of this program. We want to share our experience here. And Jeroen, also, thank you very much. You have been tackling quite a serious issues in Paris. I think your experience is valuable, extremely valuable. Maybe also we'll cooperate with you, and then yes, we see that climate changes drastically, and of course we need also to have similar organizations. Thank you for this Paris experience. Regarding Helsinki, Scandinavian cities, these are real drivers for us, and they are examples of sustainable development. Of course, we can see that huge investments were in green projects. Maybe we don't have this ambitious goals because it's quite difficult to be carbon free, because we have huge energy system. Maybe we need to reconstruct this. Our colleague from Arab Emirates mentioned this also. But we, of course, now are implementing green standards, and now we understand where to go, in new construction. But also we have a lot of old buildings, old real estate, and of course we need to renovate this, to revamp this, and to apply some innovative solutions also to decline emissions of CO2. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much. The information was valuable, helpful, and of course we'll try also our best to do this in Moscow and in Russia. I would like also to thank all our speakers. I think our discussion was very interesting. and substantive. I hope that we'll expand our cooperation, exchange our best practices. Thank you for your voting. Also, you can see the results of the voting on the screen. I wish you a good day.